What does it take to completely sabotage a dream job that pays you $76 million guaranteed? Just ask Brandon Aiyuk, because he's currently writing the masterclass on how to torch every bridge with the organization that made you rich, famous, and successful. And honestly, watching this train wreck unfold is equal parts fascinating and infuriating. The latest explosion. YouTube becomes a therapy couch. Brandon Aiyuk struck again yesterday. And this time he chose YouTube as his platform for another public meltdown. Because apparently, when you're making $30 million per year, the mature thing to do is air your dirty laundry on social media, like a teenager having a breakdown. His latest gems include, "This is so personal. I'm the only one who knows I want to play cool now, not F that I want that smoke." Wow, Brandon. Really setting the bar high for professional communication there. But wait, there's more. A couple weeks ago, he randomly declared, "I'm trying to play cornerback." Hold on, you were an All-Pro wide receiver in 2023, a legitimate top 10 receiver in the entire NFL. Why exactly are you trying to reinvent yourself at a completely different position when you've already conquered one of the most challenging roles in football? Then came the nuclear option. BA saying it was talking about trading me while I was off Percocets and muscle relaxers and peeing a cup by my bed. Couldn't walk for 10 weeks, ain't nobody trading for me. Now, we don't know exactly what this cryptic message means. Only Brandon knows, but the implications are staggering. Is this a shot at the organization? At the fan base? At media members who've covered the trade rumors? What we do know is it's unprofessional, unnecessary, and perfectly emblematic of how Aiyuk handles adversity. The trail of destruction that started with a Super Bowl loss. This toxic relationship didn't start yesterday. It's been festering since the most devastating loss in recent 49ers history. When San Francisco lost Super Bowl 58 to Kansas City in that gut-wrenching overtime defeat, most players and fans needed time to process the heartbreak, not Brandon Aiyuk's camp. The very next day, one of his close friends posted on Instagram, "This is the exact reason why we're leaving San Francisco. Thank you 49ers for drafting my brother. We are forever grateful, BA, to Vegas. Your team just lost a Super Bowl in the most devastating way possible. And your immediate response is to have your friends publicly trash the organization? That tells you everything you need to know about Aiyuk's mindset and priorities." Here's the question that's been bothering me. Why did the 49ers All-Pro 1,300-yard receiver have just 3 catches in the biggest game of the year? Was Aiyuk upset about not being a focal point in the Super Bowl game plan? Because if that's what triggered this whole saga, it explains the bitterness that's followed ever since. The social media rampage that embarrassed everyone. The social media nonsense didn't stop with that Instagram post. Last offseason, Aiyuk directly tweeted at Pittsburgh Steelers coach Mike Tomlin. "Coach Tomlin, they're saying we're twins. What do you think?" The Steelers were the most mentioned trade destination for Aiyuk at the time, so this wasn't subtle. It was a billboard. Then came the FaceTime conversation with Commanders quarterback Jayden Daniels that Aiyuk posted publicly, where he told Daniels they said they don't want me back. That clip went viral and had everyone convinced Aiyuk was leaving San Francisco. He appeared on Ryan Clark's podcast, The Pivot, and declared that Jayden Daniels was a quarterback he'd love to play for if he couldn't stay with the 49ers. Around the same time, he was posting video from Commanders practice, essentially putting up a neon sign saying, "This is where I want to be." Every single incident was Brandon Aiyuk voluntarily putting his business in the streets and creating unnecessary drama for an organization trying to win championships. The $76 million question, why wasn't this enough? Here's what makes this entire situation so maddening. The 49ers gave Aiyuk exactly what he claimed he wanted. They handed him a 4-year, $120 million contract with $30 million in average annual value and $76 million guaranteed. That guaranteed money was more than what his teammate Deebo Samuel received. Even after other receivers have signed deals since then, Aiyuk is still tied as the 7th highest paid receiver in the NFL. The organization put their money where their mouth was and proved they valued him as a cornerstone piece. Before signing that contract, I could understand Aiyuk's frustration. If you feel undervalued and disrespected during negotiations, human nature says you're going to be upset. If they really believed in you, they would back up their words with their wallet. But once the 49ers actually gave him that massive financial commitment, $76 million guaranteed, you would think the complaining would stop. You would think that level of investment would prove the organization's commitment and smooth over any hurt feelings from the negotiation process. You would be wrong. The leadership vacuum that speaks volumes. Want to see the difference between a professional and a problem? Look at how other 49ers stars handle their business. Fred Warner didn't even need a new contract, but the 49ers gave him one anyway because he represents everything they want in their organization. Would Fred Warner ever post cryptic messages on social media? Would Christian McCaffrey? Would Trent Williams? Would George Kittle? Would Nick Bosa? Not a chance. And there's a reason those players are team captains while Brandon Aiyuk isn't. Fred Warner is a consummate professional who embodies maturity and leadership. Brandon Aiyuk acts like a spoiled child compared to Warner's standard of excellence. The contrast couldn't be more stark. The culture clash that's poisoning everything Kyle Shanahan and the entire 49ers organization have been raving about the renewed energy and positive vibes in the building this season. Players are talking about how excited they are, how the good vibes are back, how everyone is chomping at the bit for the 2025 season to begin. Trent Williams showed up to OTAs for the first time in nearly a decade because he's so excited about this team's potential. Nick Bosa was there. The stars are buying in completely. Everyone except Brandon Aiyuk, who's still on the sidelines creating unnecessary distractions and drama. When players talk about the 49ers culture, they consistently mention how Kyle Shanahan is the ultimate players coach who lets players be themselves, but with non-negotiables. As George Kittle explained, Shanahan wants players who love football, are passionate about football, and stay focused on football. Shanahan will tolerate personalities and individuality, but he won't tolerate immaturity that takes away from the team's mission. That's exactly what Aiyuk keeps providing. Extracurricular drama that has nothing to do with winning games. The professional way versus the Aiyuk way. You want to see how a professional handles wanting out? Look at how Deebo Samuel managed his exit. Yes, wide receivers are always dramatic. It comes with the territory. But when Deebo wanted to be traded, he handled it with class. After last season ended, Deebo approached Kyle Shanahan privately and said, "I would like to get traded. I would like to go somewhere else." He never demanded a trade publicly. He never created social media drama. He continued saying positive things about the organization, even while wanting out. When Deebo got traded to Washington, he wrote a heartfelt piece in the Players' Tribune about how difficult the decision was and how tight his relationship with Shanahan had been. He was professional, respectful, and classy throughout the entire process. That's how you handle business when you're unhappy. That's not what Brandon Aiyuk is doing. The breaking point that changes everything in the situation reminds me of what just happened with Rafael Devers and the Boston Red Sox. Devers was a great player who signed a massive contract, but he felt disrespected when Boston brought in Alex Bregman to potentially take his position at third base. The trust was broken. Devers never forgave the Red Sox organization, and it reached a boiling point where Boston decided to trade him to San Francisco despite his talent and contract. Sometimes relationships become so toxic that both sides benefit from a fresh start, regardless of the financial implications. Are we at that point with Aiyuk and the 49ers? Has this relationship become so poisonous that both parties would be better off starting over somewhere else? The luxury versus necessity reality check here's a harsh truth that Aiyuk might not want to hear. Wide receivers are a luxury in Kyle Shanahan's offense, not a necessity. Shanahan has consistently developed productive receivers and created opportunities through scheme, play design, and play calling. This is a run-centric system that can function at an elite level without a bona fide number one receiver. The 49ers proved that throughout their Super Bowl runs and championship contention. Now, some might wonder why they paid Aiyuk $30 million per year if receivers are just luxuries. The truth is they probably should have signed him earlier when they could have gotten him for $25 million. But they waited and had to overpay. That overpayment is now looking like it might completely blow up in their faces. The final verdict. When talent isn't enough, Brandon Aiyuk is undeniably talented. He could help any NFL team with his abilities on the field. But talent without professionalism, without leadership, without the ability to put the team first, eventually becomes more trouble than it's worth. The 49ers have championship aspirations built on a culture of accountability and team-first mentality. They have a locker room full of leaders who understand what it takes to win at the highest level. The question is whether Aiyuk can play football. We know he can. The question is whether the 49ers are willing to continue dealing with his social media antics, his public complaints, and his apparent inability to embrace the culture that's made this organization successful. Based on everything we've witnessed, this marriage appears to be over. Sometimes the most talented players aren't the right fit for your culture, and sometimes the best decision for everyone is to cut ties and move forward. The 49ers have tried to make this work. They've invested heavily in Aiyuk, both financially and emotionally. They've been patient with his immaturity and public outbursts. But there comes a point where you have to prioritize team culture over individual talent. We might be witnessing that point right now. So what's your take? Has Brandon Aiyuk played his final game in a 49ers uniform? Or is there still hope for this relationship to be salvaged? Drop your predictions in the comments and give this video a thumbs up if you think it's time for both sides to move on and find happiness elsewhere.